Welcome. So here we're going to talk about adding fractions. So the problem I'm starting with here is 2 over 5 plus 3 over 7, 2/5 plus 3/7. The key to adding fractions is that we need to have a common denominator. So that lower portion of the fraction, that denominator, the bottom half, needs to be the same number in order for us to add them together. So we're going to jump into the process here. I have a 7 as the denominator of one of my fractions and a 5 as the denominator as my other. So the process to achieve the common denominator, there's a few different ways you can do it, but this I find to be the most straightforward and that it works every time. So I'm going to take my first fraction, 2 over 5, and I'm going to multiply that by 7 over 7. Well, why am I doing this? So let's talk a little bit about this. 7 divided by 7, I'm getting that 7 from the denominator of my other fraction. So that's where the 7 comes from. The reason I do 7 divided by 7 is that I don't want to change the value of 2 over 5. I just want to change its form. And we do this a lot in mathematics. When we want to change the way something looks without changing its value, we multiply by 1. 7 divided by 7 equals 1. But it's a form of 1 that is convenient to me and that will help me achieve what I'm looking for. So that's really what we're doing there is we're multiplying by 1. It changes the way my 2 over 5 looks, but it doesn't change the actual value. So that's really key. When we multiply fractions, we multiply across the top and across the bottom. So 2 times 7 is 14 and 5 times 7 is 35. So that's the first fraction dealt with. The second fraction, 3 over 7, I'm going to do the same thing, except instead of using the denominator 7, I'm using the 5. So instead of multiplying by 7 over 7, I multiply by 5 over 5. Once again, that number 5, it's coming from the denominator of the other fraction. And I'm choosing 5 over 5 because I don't want to change the value. I just want to change the form. So again, when we multiply fractions, multiply across the top, 3 times 5 is 15, and across the bottom, 7 times 5 is 35. Now, I should be happy, and I am, because I have a 35 in the denominator of both my fractions. I have a common denominator, so now I can add my fractions. I do want to note that if you use this method, if you're using the denominator of the other fraction to multiply, you will always get a common denominator. This process will always get you a common denominator. If you do not have one, then go back and check your math. It's possible you made a multiplication error somewhere because this should always work to get you a common denominator. Now, moving forward, our original problem was 2 over 5 plus 3 over 7. I have rewritten 2 over 5 as 14 over 35. It's the same value, but a different form. I have rewritten 3/7 as 15 over 35. Again, it's the same value, different form. And when I add fractions, I add the numerators and I leave the denominator the same. So I leave the denominator, 35, and I add the numerators, 14 plus 15. Oh, I apologize. I said add, and then I didn't do it. 14 plus 15 is 29. Now, you will usually be asked to simplify fractions. In this particular instance, I cannot simplify any further. And then you will just have to ask your instructor whether you can simplify using a calculator or whether you need to show the work and do it by hand. That will vary based on what class you're taking. But here is my final answer. I do want to just have a little bit of a side note as to why don't I do anything with these denominators? Why do I only add the numerators? And I think I'm always talking about food, so I'll use my pie analogy again, right? If I have, it's my birthday, and I like pie instead of cake, so we have pie. So let's say that my brother brings an apple pie, and we eat most of it. We have 1/3 of the pie left. And then my sister brings a banana cream pie because that's her specialty. And we have 1/3 of that left at the end. Well, the question is, how much pie do we have left over? Well, 1/3 plus 1/3 is 2/3. So we add the numerators only. We don't worry about the denominator, as long as that denominator is a common number. So I just want to say that's kind of the intuition of why we do that. If I said that 1/3 plus 1/3 would be 2/6, if I added the denominators, 2/6 simplifies to 1/3. That's clearly not correct, right? If I have a third of a pie and another third of a pie, I clearly have more, right? So I do want to just kind of talk about, that's the intuition of why we add only the numerators and don't worry about adding the denominators. Common denominator stays the same. We only add the numerators. Thank you so much.